When we talk about labor laws, one of the important things that gets asked is which are the laws that we need to follow as an organization to be compliant to labor laws. So finding out the list of laws is not something which is easy. So today we are going to talk about the laws that you should be aware of, which normally get clubbed under the heading of labor laws. There would be a lot of laws which would govern employment, which would be, or the terms of employment, which would be outside the gamut of labor laws. And you should consult an expert who can advise you on how to be compliant to all of those. But today we're just going to talk about the laws which you should be aware that need to be followed to be an organization which is compliant to labor laws. So the list is long, so I'm going to use a little paper that I have. If you're a standard organization, then some of those laws will not apply to you. Like if you're an organization which is specifically into building and construction, then you have a law for that. So we're not going to talk about those. We will talk about laws which are standard and applicable to most of the organizations which are involved in business as well as manufacturing. So one of the first laws we will talk about is called as the Contract Labor Regulation and Abolition Act. The other one is called as the Interstate Migrant Workmen. Then we have the Equal Remuneration Act. We have the Minimum Wages Act. We have the Payment of Bonus Act, and we have the Payment of Wages Act. All these will also get clubbed under either the Code of Wages or under the Code of Occupational Safety and Health Wages. These are the new laws which are coming. When we talk about the Code of OSH, as we call it, the Code of Occupational Safety and Health, we have a lot of other laws which get into this. Specifically, if you're a manufacturing organization, then you also need to be aware of what we call as the Factories Act. That is also under this. Okay. As of today, all these are separate acts. In future, when the code comes in, all of them will be merged into a singular act. This code of OSH or other organizations also, the dock workers, the beedi and cigar workers, the building and other construction workers, the cine workers, cine, the movie, and the mines, the motor transport, specifically if you have a cab company that you're using, that you are running, the motor transport, the workers comes, the plantation acts. And if you're a sales organization then or pharma organization, then the Sales Promotion Employees Act also gets applied, and the Working Journalist Act. So these two predominantly would cover a certain group of laws. If we were to now talk about the others which we need to be really careful about are the Industrial Disputes Act, the Industrial Employment Standing Order Act, the Trade Unions Act. These three will get clubbed into an act which will be called the Industrial Relations Code or the Code of Industrial Relations. As of today, these are three separate acts which are there. The other thing that one needs to be aware is called as the Building and Other Construction Workers Welfare Cess. This is if you are in that business. Similarly for the cine workers. What we now need to look at, all of them are called the Employees Compensation Act, the Employees Provident Fund and Miscellaneous Provisions Act, Employees State Insurance Act, the Employment Exchanges Compulsory Notification of Vacancies Act, the Maternity Benefit Act, the Payment of Gratuity Act, the Unorganized Workers Social Security Act. All these get covered under a new code which is coming in called as the Social Security Code. But as of today, all of them are separate acts. Now, some of these laws may apply to an organization, some of these may not apply to an organization. So a lot of discussions is happening about the 4 codes which will come and really make life easier. Yes, they would, but the point is that the laws that we discussed till now are going to be covered under the 4 codes or merged into the 4 codes. But there are other laws also which need to be followed by an organization some falling under the gambit of labor laws, some do not fall under the gambit of labor laws, but they are so much designed for a employment perspective or an organization perspective that normally you will have your human resource function taking care of them. So I'm going to tell those also. The first is called as the Sexual Harassment of Women at Workplace Prevention, Prohibition and Redressal Act. Okay. The other is the Apprentices Act. And then we have the Child and Adolescent Labor Prohibition and Regulations Act. There is another act which we normally ignore it and put it in the IT domain, but that is called as the Digital Personal Data Protection Act. That also includes certain sections which are necessary. The Industrial Establishments Conferment of Permanent Status to Workmen Act, the Industrial Establishments National and Festival Holidays Act, the Information Technology Act, okay, that also has a lot of things, the Labor Welfare Fund Act, the Payment of Sustenance Allowance Act, the Rights of Persons with Disabilities Act. If you are not a factory, if you're not a manufacturing organization, then you have a new act, or not a new act, you have a different act called the Shops and Establishment Act. Now, Shops and Establishment Act are not a central act. They are not run by the state, central government. They are run by each of the specific states where you are there. So depending on how many states you have offices or registered offices or offices on rent, you will need to be following all of these. And then the last one being called the Transgender Persons Protection Rights Act. So if you can follow all of these laws, you would normally be compliant to majority of the expectation that an organization is required to fulfill from the side of a labor or people or employment.